curating this exhibit. Fascinating.
It is. It's been a lot of fun.
So as an architect walking through, it's very interesting to see the relationship between the physical human and the physical space.
Yeah.
And what's going on. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I can, and I think it's easy to talk about that because I think it's something that Hopper very much thought about. He thinks about figure-ground relationships. But to be more specific, Hopper is very interested in how people at once engage and disengage from their architectural settings. Art historians often use the word interiority to talk about the personality, the relationship of the built environment to those people enclosed in the environment. This is something that Hopper thought about a lot.
In what language besides the visual would he describe it?
You know, in what language? Well, I think that Hopper, you know, he is an artist. He's a commercial. He gets his start for over 2 decades. He's a commercial illustrator. And he never loses the vocabulary of commercial illustration. And although there was a time in his life where it was to his benefit to talk down somewhat, to play down his role as an illustrator, it's very clear that he never leaves behind and in fact remains comfortable with the commercial setting. Remember, in the most obvious sense, many of the spaces you're looking at are commercial properties in the first place. These are hotels, motels, tourist homes, which are like Airbnbs. There are motor courts, motor camps, and apartment hotels, which are hotel apartments. You pay a lease for them, but they have the amenities of a hotel. He understands how these work, because among the many trade magazines and commercial periodicals he illustrated for were 2 of the best-known trade publications, hotel trade publications of the day. First was a magazine called Tavern Topics, published in the late Tavern Topics. We love the alliteration. Tavern Topics he did illustrations for. It's published by the Waldorf Astoria Corporation. And it was distributed in the many properties that they own, such as the McAlpine and the Annex, and of course the Waldorf Astoria itself, but many others. He did 5 covers and several line drawings and interior works for them. From 1924 to 1925, Edward Hopper produced 18 full-color, brilliant, prismatic, engaging covers for Hotel Management, which is still very much in operation to this day. It's owned by the Questex Media Group. And the reason why there are so many of these in the publication for Edward Hopper and the American Hotel and the exhibition itself is because they provided a storehouse of images and ideas to which Hopper would refer in his many hospitality services things, hotels, restaurants and hotels, things like that, but even works that had nothing to do with hotel or restaurant management. So he spoke the language of commercial illustration throughout his life, but it's also something that he also spoke the language of he had the vantage point and the vocabulary as a tourist. He had the tourist's gaze. He stayed in hotels and when others were paying the bills, certainly, but he took many. He's on the road for many months out of any given year, and he stays in motels and motor courts and tourist homes.
So do you think that the publication and that experience informed him to be more critical in his view of a hotel as well and see nuances others wouldn't?
I would say critical in the sense of seeing nuances, not necessarily critical in the critique, let me make value judgment sense. I think he has a certain visual acuity. I think that he paints and limns his drawings with a degree of architectural precision seen in the works of some, but not too many other contemporaries, to be sure.
So let's talk about space and place.
Yeah. Well, so without getting too jargony, as we were discussing earlier, The cultural geographer, taught at University of Wisconsin for many years, Yi-Fu Tuan, in some of his volumes, made a distinction between space and place that I think is helpful for understanding a lot of the paintings we see in this show and the works of many artists and authors who take us through built landscapes. In Tuan's estimation, a place and a space are two different things. A space is a physical entity, to be sure. It's often something you go through, but it's something that one does not necessarily have an intimate engagement with. The intimate engagement that he thinks about is pause. He writes, if space is motion, place is pause. What does he mean by this? Well, there's certain things that, because of how visually beguiling they are, and because of our relationships, our human relationships to those things, maybe there's a historical memory. Oh, maybe Washington crossed the Delaware. This is Ellis Island. This is where your great-great-grandparents came into the United States. Or this is the San Andreas Fault line. Let us stop and look at this. So because of things in the natural landscape, or that we bring, baggage we bring, that they get us to literally pause. And so we bring an understanding to it, and it becomes a place. Now, for Hopper, and I don't think Hopper would have ever put it in these words, to put it mildly, he'd probably find this whole conversation unnecessarily pedantic. I feel sure of that. But I do think that he draws a distinction, and he in fact blurs the definitions of both of these perhaps obvious sensibilities. Because in Hopper's work, and work of others, including poets and authors like Sinclair Lewis and Willa Cather and John Dos Passos, poets and writers, we see our share in Hemingway's in A Farewell to Arms. Much of A Farewell to Arms takes place in hotels. Frederick and Catherine in Hemingway's Farewell to Arms, they are in hotels a lot. But in Hopper, we see a lot of transportation. We see marine craft, we see automotives, cars, we see trains, but we also see roads, the things that get us there. We see motels and hotels and diners. We see the places that give us a breath, that allow us to come up for air as we go through the American spaces. And the beauty and the genius of Hopper's hotels, motels, apartments, and apartments, hotels, is that he reminds us that there are places for pause, these in-between moments called hotels and motels, in a landscape full of motion and transience and rushing from one place to another.
And there's a psychological force in all this as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So, would you talk about that?
Hopper understands psychology, both in, he comes of age during the flowering of popular psychology. I don't think he has a superficial, by any means, understanding of psychology, but I do think that there was a time when saying things like, oh, how Freudian of you, or how Jungian of you. In T.S. Eliot's grand poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, that poem is not about art history, but we're told, in the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Now, would it be missing the point to think of Michelangelo's David or Pietà when you read T.S. Eliot? Maybe, but that's a good example of how art history entered our vernacular lexicon and was popularized. In a similar way, Jung and Freud and Lacan eventually all become part of our colloquial. I think Hopper understands that. In selected works, absolutely, with his figures of individuals sitting on the edge of a bed, not knowing quite what they've done, the world they've created for themselves, and here they are enclosed in an apartment, a resort room, a hotel. What exactly has transpired? In many ways, Hopper does a very good job of responding to the visual culture of popular psychology.
In his paintings, what is he referencing in popular psychology? Because there's a tension always.
Popular psychology and professional clinical psychology are quite different beasts. I think he is better read than the person at a cocktail party saying, "Oh, how Freudian," or "Let me talk of Michelangelo." You know, in Eliot's poem, which I know you know, these are people who measure out their world in terms of teaspoons and cakes and ices. Hopper is pretty well read, to say the least. And, you know, there's a painting, one of the more famous paintings in the exhibition here at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts is called Excursion into Philosophy. And in her notes, in the ledger book that Edward and his artist wife Josephine kept, Jo writes, that is her nickname, Jo writes, so there's an open book, perhaps you can put this, you can show this in the podcast or online. There's an open book next to the bottomless woman. And Jo writes, "Book is open to Plato, perhaps read too late." Now, on the one hand, that's kind of funny, and it opens some speculation, like what could that mean? On the other hand, these are people who probably knew Plato's Republic and Plato's allegory of the cave. These are people who had a more than ordinary understanding of philosophy. These are individuals who came of age and you know, they understood what anxiety was. And the anxiety that they often register is the understanding of place. Eudora Welty is right. There's a sense of place. Place becomes a plot determinant in a lot of literature. But I think that Welty and Yves Foutoin laid a groundwork upon which we can be even more specific and talk about the psychology of place. And I'm sure many have, in fact, written about this. The psychology of place has to do with how comfortable you are or are not with your surroundings. How do you respond to it? And as you go through the oeuvre of Edward Hopper, you see people in varying degrees of detachment from their place. They're not sure whether they're in a drive-by space or they're in the permanence, the place that merits pause.
So, what are you reading?
Well, I mean, I think commercial architecture is what we're all reading.
Of course.
But what I'm reading these days is I recently read an autobiography, a memoir by Jeff Tweedy. Jeff Tweedy, the lead singer for Wilco. I'm also very interested in Sinclair Lewis. He has a novel called Work of Art, which is about an individual who has a rough time reconciling himself to the fact that he's spent most of his world obsessed with hotels. Sinclair Lewis is better known for Babbitt and Main Street and things like that. So I'm a big Sinclair Lewis fan. I haven't made my way entirely through Donna Tartt's book, The Goldfinch.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Which has apparently been made into a movie, so perhaps I don't. But I would like to steer the conversation back to a little bit about hospitality services and what we are and are not comfortable with. And it's my hope that people will come to the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts between now and February 23rd. It's also my hope that people will see the second incarnation of this project from June 7th to September 13th at the Indianapolis Museum of Art at Newfields. I mean, one of the things that the exhibition argues is that a hotel is a lot like a painting. And that's such a weird thing to say, but but before solving that equation, maybe that's a good note on which to conclude this. I want people to come here and see the ways in which, although he would not in a million years have said a club like that, But Hopper makes a very strong case for a hotel being a lot like that.
Fantastic. It is a fantastic exhibit.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for doing this.
Awesome.